things God's way and really, doing what we're called to do. We're not doing anything great. We're not doing anything stupendous. We're doing a mighty thing because we're serving the Lord. No, that's what every creature of God should be doing. And he tells us in Romans 12, he says in verse 1, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. It's your reasonable service to the one who has purchased us, redeemed us, bought us with his own blood, his life. He gave his life for us. We are to give our life in response to him. Therefore, redeem the time. No, there's that whole idea of value. When you have a lot of something, they teach you this in business, right? In a business course, you have a lot of something. It's not as valuable if you have few of something. It's why gems, rare stones are valuable. If you had a whole lot of them, they decrease in value. Likewise with time. If we have a whole lot of time, well, then okay, if I waste a day, if I waste maybe just a few days, a week, it's not as significant. If you have little time, just a little amount of much fewer time, and you waste it. And I think that's one of God's points there, where in Ephesians 5, right before it, awake thou that sleepest, rise from the dead. Or God, let me make sure I quote that correctly. Ephesians 5:14. Wherefore he saith, awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give thee light. And this connection between awaking from the dead and sleep, we find in Proverbs a few times in relationship to harvest and a son that causes shame. Why is the son cause shame? Because he's sleeping in time of harvest. We've entered into Judgment Day, which is the time of harvest, reaping the harvest, that fruit, the great multitude, to draw it to the Lord. And if we're still lackadaisical, we're still in like a slumber. We're still wasting large amounts of time. It does call into question: have we been awoken? Have we received the light? Are we saved? Are we children of the day? Or maybe we're not. Maybe we're not.
But Chris, you said something interesting that this could be your final year, and it's interesting how technology, on one hand, is really keeping people alive, but despite all that, tomorrow is not promised us. And as a child, I used to laugh when I would hear someone get called a fool, because I would listen to Mr. T, or you would hear like a gang call somebody a fool, and I would laugh. But God calls someone a fool who has an expectation that is not of God. And it reminds me of the parable of the rich man in Luke chapter 12. I'm going to read from verse 15 till 18. And he said unto them, take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of the things which he possesseth. And I fall into this trap where, even though I know the world's ending and we're living in the day of judgment, I get wrapped up in the cares of this life and trying to earn a living and balancing all of that. But I like this parable. And he spake a parable unto them, saying, the ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do? Because I have no room where to bestow my fruits. And he said, this will I do. I will pull down my barns and build greater. And there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. And it's interesting when God talks about the day of judgment, they ate, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. But God said unto him, fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then whose shall those things be which thou hast provided? So is he that layeth up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. And I really like this story because it's deceitful riches. And I know there's a lot more spiritual meaning to this story in terms of the gospel and false understanding. But on a physical level, you can see that the fool said he has many years. And it kind of reminds me of 2 Peter chapter 3, that they're willingly ignorant when they say all things continue since the creation. And they're also looking at their abundance to carry them, in the future, which could also be a false sense of salvation as well.
And then that parable goes with James 4. The thing we read in James 4 where the question is asked, what is your life? And there it said, Jesus said, your life consists not in abundance,
of that which
in the things you have.
Yeah.
And in James 4, starting in verse 13, it says, go to now, ye that say today or tomorrow, we will go into such a city and continue there a year and buy and sell and get gain. Whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time and then vanisheth away. For that ye ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or that. But now ye rejoice in your boastings. All such rejoicing is evil. Therefore, to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. So the problem is, here's another example where someone is saying, today or tomorrow or this year, 2026, New Year's resolution, or, they're planning out their year. We will go on a vacation. We're going to this paradise area. We're going to go into that city and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And it's the same thing as the rich man in Luke 12. Thou fool, when God comes and says, your soul is required. You've had your allotted time. You've had your portion. Every one of us has been given an allotted time. I think, where'd you read in Job? Was that 14?
Yeah.
14, Job 14, the first couple of verses says, man that is born of a woman is of few days and full of trouble. He cometh forth like a flower and is cut down. He fleeth also as a shadow and continueth not. That wasn't the one I was thinking of. There's another one that speaks of man's man's appointed days upon the earth.
Of few days. Didn't you make a video like long time ago of few days?
Yes.
Yeah.
My mother hated that. I showed her a video, and she told me it was morbid. And from her perspective, from the world's perspective, it definitely, what we're talking about.
Yeah, right.
What we're discussing is morbid, and it's not the the character of the season, right? It's a time to be happy. Happy New Year. Let's rejoice. Well, first of all, a long time ago, I gave up banging pots and pans. I've never been interested
My
in
neighbors
fireworks. Huh?
My neighbors haven't.
Ringing in the new year.
Yeah. Well, I would have been out there on the street, when I was young. And of course, beer in one hand. It's hard to bang a pot and pan.
We've all been there, right?
Like that. But it's not a joke. It's how I used to be. And but now, there's the child of God. First of all, we're not afraid of death. We're not afraid of dying. We're not frightened like the people of the world are frightened of the end of their earthly existence, whether it come by physical death or by the end of the world. And it's why so many people don't want to hear about the end of the world, because especially if they're younger, they have an expectation I'm going to live another few decades at least. And the end of the world means the end of their life, as much as if they had a heart attack, and they don't want to hear about that. That's morbid. Let's not think about that. And this is the driving force behind the world's vanity, behind the world's emptiness, behind how's it say, they're willingly ignorant, their willful ignorance, that they just want to focus on today. They want to focus on eating, drinking, being merry, partying. Let's just have a good time, not think of that. But that they don't want to think of is the reality.
Right.
It's the fact. One last, I see Gary, I'll just one last thing. I grew up and nobody talked about this unspoken thing. Nobody tells you about getting old and dying, and it's not the topic, it's not the subject, it's morbid, and you have to figure it out on your own, because the world doesn't want to really get into that issue. And yet, over time, people die. Over time, give it enough time, and your family members die, your neighbors die, your friends die, your acquaintances die, your co-workers die. You hear about death of your favorite actors, your favorite musicians. People are dying. I just saw a picture on Facebook today. It was an image from 1914. It was Gary's favorite place, Reading Terminal. Reading Terminal, and all these people are walking by it, 12th and Market, 1914, and I thought, every one of them's dead. Every one of them. Maybe, possibly, there could have been a couple of children born in that year that are still alive and are going for Guinness World Book of Records. But even the children are all dead. They're all dead. And that's not that long ago. It's not that long ago. And so too, and those in the 20s and the 1930s, most of them are all dead. And that's because this is the reality of living as a sinner in a cursed world, in a sin-cursed body. The wages of sin is death. That's why the world doesn't want to talk about it. Because if you talk about death, then it gets around to why we die. And that gets around to the gospel and to the God that has, he has condemned men to die because of their sin. And that, no, let's not think about that. Let's go put on another movie.
Thank you, Chris. That was well said. You're listening to the Bible Exalted program. The topic of discussion is there will always be another year versus the last year will come. I'd like to open up the program for callers. If we would like to do that at this point, we are at the half-hour mark. So once again, the Bible Exalted program, the topic of discussion is there will always be another year versus the last year will come.
I was doing a calculation. I think if you put 13,045 years on a clock, 7 years would be the last 23 seconds, which I thought was interesting. But just the hairline right before midnight.
Yeah.
Oh.
Interestingly, when God says, "This night thy soul shall be required of thee," God talks about it being the nighttime, the nighttime when no man can work. And it's really sobering. We were blessed with having Mr. Camping play the New Year's Eve Bible study. I'm not sure if you all remember this. On New Year's Eve, Mr. Camping would have a Bible study about New Year's. And it was a very old study. So unfortunately, there were some messages about, making a decision or kind of moving in that direction. So now I've kind of transitioned over, and I've heard Chris talk about, one of his loved ones. And there was a song that you quoted, Chris. I don't know if you remember it, about do the things that for Christ that will last. Only one life, and if you remember that, Chris.
Yeah. Well, I found a quote. It was the day my brother died. He died in like June 1st, 2022. And we went over there and went in this one room, and there was this old Bible, really yellowing, and pages are ripped. And it had to be old because it would have probably belonged to my grandmother. I remember being told she used to be a Sunday school teacher, but she never mentioned the Bible to me. So I don't know what happened there. But in this Bible was the statement, it was written, only one life to live, it'll soon be over or soon be past. All that's done for Christ will last. And someone's told me that is from
that is a song.
Yeah.
There's another song that I like. I think you've posted it in the past. It says, "When it's all been said and done." I like the lyrics to that song. I think I have them right here. It says, "When it's all been," I won't read the whole thing, but when it's all been said and done, there's just one thing that matters. Did I do my best to live for truth? Did I live my life for you?
Referring to Christ. Yeah.
Right. Referring to Christ.
Right. That is all that matters. Ultimately, did we serve God or not? And
that's something to definitely really ponder, these last few years till 2033, especially with the command to feed sheep. And time just wait. I was just telling Gary, I think 7 years ago was the same year where COVID outbroke, because that was 2019, even though it happened at the end of the year where it finally hit the US, December. That was the year that 2019 was the year that first spread, and we're already in 2026. So that's about 7 years. So that went by really quickly.
Yeah.
Not a lot of time.
Well, we do have a hand raised. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Hello. Yes. Please go ahead.
Okay. My brethren in the Lord, praise the Lord. I was just thinking, I never heard of women hijacking, and I don't want to hijack this show. I have a lot to say, but anyway, somebody mentioned about morbidity. Okay. My sister told me, "You are morbid." And I said, "Isn't the world morbid?" But now it's even more so, And I just realized that we cannot condemn people. God has the power to condemn. We may try to destroy one nation, but God is destroying the world. So, and anyway, Ecclesiastes 3:11-22 came back to mind if somebody wanted to read it.
Well, that's a lot to read.
Okay.
Let's see, Ecclesiastes 3.
11-22.
Well, I'll read a few verses. verse 16, and moreover I saw under the sun the place of judgment, that wickedness was there, and the place of righteousness, that iniquity was there. I said in mine heart, God shall judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time there for every purpose and for every work. I said in mine heart concerning the estate of the sons of men, that God might manifest them, and that they might see that they themselves are beasts. For that which befalleth the sons of men befalleth beasts, even one thing befalleth them, as the one dieth, so dieth the other. Yea, they have all one breath, so that a man hath no preeminence above a beast, for all is vanity. All go unto one place, all are of the dust, and all turn to dust again. Who knoweth the spirit of man that goeth upward, and the spirit of the beast that goeth downward to the earth? Wherefore I perceive that there is nothing better than that a man should rejoice in his own works, for that is his portion, for who shall bring him to see what shall be after him?
So those going upward would have to be the elect, right?
Let's see, the spirit of man that goeth upward and the spirit of the beast. I think so. I think so. But we know that the elect in their soul returns to the Lord. Their spirit goes to be with the Lord upon death. But God has also given a spirit that animates the bodies of beasts and animates the bodies of men that he could possibly have in view here. I'm not sure.
In Job, it talks about how God could gather the breath of all men, and I think it talks about the spirit returning.
Yeah. I want to mention, comment on something that you said, where you said that the world is morbid. That's the truth. That's the truth, because the child of God, we focus on the things of the Bible, and the things of the Bible, the Word of God, is life. It's a living word, even if it speaks of man's end and the end of the world. It's still alive. It's quick and powerful. The words that I speak, they are living, I think Christ said. And yet, in rejecting Christ and turning from the Bible, God speaks about this in Proverbs 8, where he presents wisdom personified, so it's a type of Christ. And the last couple of verses, it says, "For whoso findeth me findeth life, and shall obtain favor of Jehovah. But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All that hate me love death." All that hate wisdom, all that hate Christ, all who hate the Word of God, the Bible, they love death, because they love their sin, and the wages of sin is death. So they love the thing that has killed them, slew them in spirit already, and will kill them completely very shortly. They love their drinking, they love their drugs, they love their free reign of speech, whatever they think they say. They don't want any constraints that the Word of God would put upon their mouths or upon their minds. As Jesus said, whoever thinks about a woman to lust after her has committed adultery already. They don't want any of that. They want to be this free agent, they think, and being that free agent, they're really servants, the sin of Satan, and they're showing their preference, their love is towards death. That's truly morbid, and that's what we see in the world today. To talk about our end as the Bible would present it, no, that's in actuality not morbid. It's just truth.
We were getting back to the topic. There will always be another year. The world has something to say about that. Again, on the internet, it says Earth will not have a definite final year in the way we think of it, but it is expected to become uninhabitable for most life forms in about
Billion?
1.3 billion
Billion.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was telling.
Due to the sun's evolution, ultimately in approximately 4.5 billion years, which I think is what they're saying, how old the Earth is already. But so they're saying there's going to be another 4.5 billion years when the sun will expand into a red giant and engulf the Earth. Okay.
I was telling Gary the other. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
The other day, I was like, if you really think about it, they put creation, well, not their creation, billions of years in the past, and they also put the end of the world billions of years in the future. And it's just like they put it as far as they can on either side.
Yeah,
which I thought was kind of interesting. It's not like they believe the universe is billions of years old, but then they think we're near the end.
Yeah.
Well,
so
in light of climate change, maybe that some of that stuff has changed, but
that's so on the other hand, our topic says the last year will come, and I would just like to read maybe a verse or two that talks about that. In Matthew 13:47, we read again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind, which when it was full, they drew to the shore and sat down and gathered the good into into vessels, but cast away the bad. So shall it be at the end of the world. The angels shall come forth and sever the wicked from among the just, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. So, right there, we see that the end of the world means that that the last year will come.
and also
The Bible's, like I said before, the Bible is pointing to the evidence of the Bible is pointing to 2033. There's many other verses that talk about the end of the world in the Bible. So
I was going to bring up Ecclesiastes or Proverbs 23:18. That's a big one. I don't know if that was mentioned yet.
yeah,
Where it
for
says,
there, sure, yeah.
For surely there is an end, and thine expectation should not be cut off. And I was just thinking about something, just going through the timeline a bit. Not only do we have all like the dates God has given us for creation, the flood date, but also just like individual months and days we're kind of looking more into. But there's just so many time references in the Bible. And when you lay out the timeline, you have a beginning and you have all the way up until the end. So it's like why somebody doesn't think that God would put the time for the end is actually pretty astounding when you consider that he's literally laid out an entire timeline from the start. So it would just be very uncharacteristic to have a whole timeline put in the Bible, and it's just that last day. You can't know that bit, right?
Yeah. Everyone. I got to tell you, I am so enthralled and excited when I think about all these things. I mean, I'm literally excited when I think about a year. It's like a watch, and it's just ticking. It's just moving. It's all these gears, and it's bringing us into, the end. And I used to think, back in the day about May 21. And for folks who are listening to this program, you might hear us state something like mounting biblical evidence of 2033. But we've learned a lot, and there was a lot of excitement about this particular date, May 21, 2011. And there was a Bible verse that said in 2 Peter chapter 3, a day with the Lord is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day. And it's really wonderful to have that excitement that we had. Here it is. It's coming. The momentum, the excitement. And it's taught me a lot more as we're coming into this season. And this time there seems to be more assurance, more comfort, more